Georgie Pie, reportedly out at ABC News. We're going to get into all the details on that one. Bill Clinton's golden boy, bye-bye, apparently. FEMA, oh, they're in a lot of trouble. 4 FEMA employees are being fired over that $59 million payment that was just made to some fancy schmancy New York City hotels to house illegals. Believe it or not. And then Trump is calling out Letitia James in a really strong way, and he's joined by none other than Steve Bannon. Wait till you hear how Steve Bannon believes she must be investigated. Now I'm with him, Pam Bondi. It is time. And then, well, we got to get to this story. What is Fox doing? Fox News seems to want to be back together again with Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and Bill O'Reilly. My gosh. Yeah, you see, they figured it out. Apparently, the independents kind of have it going on. And so there's this little deal they just made where somehow all of them are going to wind up back together. We'll discuss. It is great to have all of you here. Reminder to subscribe, share, like. It is really important right now. Independent media, that's what we are. We are completely unfiltered, no scripts, no nothing, just me and you. Great to have you all here. Make sure you subscribe, share, like, and hit the bell so you know when the show is happening. We're on at a little different time today, so it's good to see some new faces, and I see some familiar ones as well. Tina, you were one of the first in the room. Letitia James is in a whole lot of trouble. We're going to get to that. But first, what happened to Georgie? Oh, wow. I mean, I'm looking at George Stephanopolous, and I do think it's over for the poor guy. George Stephanopolous, you know, he's going to have a hard time. Let's be honest, right? Like, he's going to have a really hard time reporting on Donald Trump for the next 4 years. So maybe this is all for the best. He's apparently totally miserable. He feels emasculated. Can you imagine? He feels emasculated. Oh, poor little guy. Poor little Georgie. I mean, I'm being unkind, right? He is little. Anyway, little George is upset because he had to issue an apology and it cost him $16 million. Well, not technically him, but his network. Because you see, he went on air and said some things that weren't true about the president. And you know what? The president's like, I don't have to deal with this. I'm going to sue you for libel. And you know what? He won. Or at least they settled. So yeah, Georgie feels emasculated. Spirit-filled, good to have you back in the house. Thank you for your generosity. I'm going to get to all of your comments. Thank you for all the super chats you guys gave yesterday. Just, I'm amazed by the generosity that's so extraordinary. So George apparently feels emasculated because his need to give this apology, you see. And well, he didn't like it. According to this new report, and this is for the New York Post, who talked to several sources involved. You know, I reported on this a while back, and what did I tell you? He's going to be out. There's no way they're going to keep him. There's just no way, because it's like, you don't need that. If you're Disney, if you're Bob Iger, I mean, things are bad enough. You got Elon Musk on your trail. Elon doesn't like you very much, but then again, you didn't like Elon. But guess who won that battle? Elon. Okay, and he's also got X. So Bob Iger was the first to pull the funding. He runs Disney, which runs, of course, ABC News. And so this is getting a little bit sticky. Donald Trump has no use for ABC News after a few debates, and then this guy. So he said some things that were untrue. We're going to get to that in a second. But as a result of this, he's pretty, quote, miserable, according to sources telling the Post that the network could wait to pull the plug on him until this summer when things are dead, or later in the year. I mean, put the guy out of his misery, for goodness sakes, would you? You're really going to make him report on Donald Trump, the guy he calls this, that, and the other? Again, more on that in a second. Stephanopolous, it says, has been rumored to be on his way out, according to multiple network sources. Again, you heard it here first. I said it was the only logical conclusion after he had to pay, or Disney, ABC News had to pay $16 million. It was the only logical conclusion. It's because, you see, one George Stephanopolous was so intent on saying over and over and over again that Donald Trump was somehow found, quote, liable for rape, which was not true. That is not what he was found. Liable for sexual abuse was actually what the judge had said. And Georgie was told this multiple times by his producer. Apparently, they even have text messages of it. They're like, don't say this, don't say this, don't say this. And what did Georgie do? He went on air and he said,
and you've endorsed Donald Trump for president. Judges and 2 separate juries have found him liable for rape and for defaming the victim of that rape. How do you square your endorsement of Donald Trump with the testimony we just saw?
Well, I will tell you, I was raped at the age of 16. And any rape victim will tell you, I've lived for 30 years with an incredible amount of shame.
Okay, so just to point out, he didn't just say it once, he had to say it twice. And this is after his producers were like, no, don't say this. Please don't say this. Well, it resulted in a lawsuit. It resulted in a fine, or at least a settlement of some $16 million. $15 million going to the Trump Presidential Library, another $1 million for the lawyers, and Georgie feeling totally emasculated as a result. You know, he had to give an apology too, you know, not kind of pretty for George. So the expectation, and I'm just going to call it here and now, like he's not staying. There's no way he's staying. They're not going to continue to pay that salary given what he's cost them and the sort of capital loss or the equity loss that they're going to have with the White House having this guy in the seat. Which makes you wonder whether or not
to themselves. But 87% support deporting criminal undocumented migrants.
Yes, I don't know anybody in the world. Yeah, I don't know anybody in the world who wants to keep the criminals. I don't know anybody.
That's where we should be focused.
Can I say something? Because
you see, Whoopi Goldberg is also on thin ice. George Stephanopolous is not the only one who's going to be out. It's expected that, you know, Whoopi could be in kind of a tough spot too, which is one of the reasons you just heard her say, I don't know anybody who wants to keep the criminals in the United States. Well, except for Letitia James, more on that in a moment. So she's actually sounding as though she agrees with Donald Trump a little bit on this one. I think that is by design, shall we say. If you notice, The View is out with a whole brand new program. Oh, it's The View on weekends. I will spare you the promotion, but suffice it to say, Whoopi's not in it. Nowhere to be found. So they're going to be streaming now on weekends, but there's no Whoopi. Everybody else, the whole cast is there except for Whoopi, which makes one sort of conclude that perhaps there's a little contract negotiation going on. And maybe that was one of the things that they haven't been able to determine in the negotiation. But then again, maybe they're not even going to keep her at all. Maybe they're going to say enough is enough, right? You've cost us dearly, lady. We don't need any more of this. We don't need the threat of Brendan Carr at the FCC taking away our affiliate licenses all over the country for all of these little O&O, not just the O&Os owned and operated, but all the little stations that we try and milk so that they get the privilege of having the ABC branding and they have the privilege of carrying your show, Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, Sunny House, and the rest of them. Disney doesn't need that headache. Bob Iger doesn't need that headache. Shareholders don't need that headache. So I would expect that George will be joined, shall we say, on his way out the door by one Whoopi Goldberg sometime in 2025, sooner rather than later for George. In fact, if you turn into this week with George Stephanopolous, I actually haven't seen him. I see Martha Raddatz. They're all circling the wagons, you see, because everybody wants the gig. There's a Jonathan Karl. Again, you've probably never heard of these people, but they're sort of mainstays at the network, and they want the job. David Muir apparently wants it, but, you know, he probably doesn't have much of a future after the incident with the very tight-fitting little, fire jacket. Remember that one? He was caught with a clothespin, pinning his jacket tight because, you had to just look so great while you're out there covering those LA wildfires. Oh, my goodness. So they get a bit of a mess going on. And none of it is any surprise. I would just say mainstream media is kind of doomed. And I think they know it. Which is why, we'll talk about this story a little bit later on, you have suddenly Fox trying to get back in on its action, back in on Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson and Bill O'Reilly, the people that they kicked to the curb. They want them back. Oh, yeah, you better believe it. They're like ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. We got more on that coming up. Make sure you subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. I want to get to DEI and Disney because Disney is charting a whole new course for itself here. It's going solo as far as the DEI goes. No more of that dumping various DEI programs. Here's the headline. 2 DEI programs, not 1, but 2. I mean, how many did they have, for goodness sakes? They're axing the programs for diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. It's just the latest company, of course, to walk back some of this wokeness. I mean, you have Google, for example, getting rid of all its fancy schmancy holidays. I mean, what would I do without every single month being some other affinity group's holiday? Well, what do you know? Google's actually getting rid of all those. I couldn't believe it. I'm not going to be able to know when it's Black History Month? I'm not going to be able to know when it's Indigenous Peoples Day? No. They're getting rid of all that. Check it out. I want to show you. Yep, Google Calendar has removed cultural events from their site, including Pride Month, Black History Month, Holocaust Remembrance Day, Jewish Heritage, Hispanic Heritage, Indigenous Peoples Day. What about, women and all that? I mean, there's so many. It's exhausting. Right? When you look at your calendar, because you start to see things and you hear things that you've never even heard of before. It's always a day. It's always a month. So that's going bye-bye, along with Disney, of course, dumping its DEI programs. I don't know how that's going to sit so well with the likes of, say, Whoopi Goldberg, who's, all about those initiatives, or even, well, what about this guy, Captain America? The Captain America that thinks Captain America doesn't represent America. Here he is. Just a couple of weeks ago, over in Rome, Italy, speaking on the international stage, kind of trashing Captain America, and America for that matter.
For me, Captain America represents a lot of different things, and I don't think the term, America should be one of those representations. It's about a man who keeps his word, who has honor, dignity, and integrity, someone who is trustworthy and dependable. It's kind of, this is kind of like an aspect of a dream coming true. When I was a kid, all of us as actors, I believe, want to get back to that day before someone told you no. When you look out your door and you see a 5-year-old kid with a stick and he's slaying dragons to save the princess in the tower, that kid really believes there are dragons out there. That stick is really a sword and he's really trying to save that princess. And then one day somebody told him, no, there are no dragons, that's not a sword, and that princess is not there. And all of his little dreams were dashed. So, as an actor, I feel like our job is to get back to the day where we see that dragon and we slay that dragon to save that princess.
And we must admit that somehow Captain America, who's about all this goodness and, good triumphing over evil, that's not America. I mean, wow. What a way to sell a movie, buddy. I think he knows he's on the skids. I mean, now the DEI program's out. He's got to actually deliver, like real box office delivery. And he was quoted recently, this is Anthony Mackie, the new Captain America, in Esquire magazine saying he doesn't know if he has a second or third or fourth movie. He doesn't know if they'll continue to develop his character because the movie needs to perform. And well, that's the name of the game, right? We are a capitalist nation. You do work for a for-profit company, one Disney, that actually needs to make a profit on your stuff. Disney pulling back out of the DEI programs. It's Reimagine Tomorrow program, a big DEI push coming right out of the SEC filing, the 10K that they just put forward. The program had been seen as, quote, amplifying underrepresented voices and features some of Disney's DE&I commitments and action. Well, they're getting rid of it because, apparently they were promising 50% of regular and recurring characters around the Disney universe. They would all come from underrepresented groups. Here's the executive speaking on it in March of 2023, sort of saying, hey, we got to do this. Not anymore.
And that was the thing that really got me, because I have heard so much from so many of my colleagues over the course of the last couple of weeks, in open forums and through emails and phone conversations. And I feel a responsibility to speak, not just for myself, but for them, to all of us. We had an open forum last week at 20th where, again, the home of really incredible, groundbreaking LGBTQIA stories over the years, where one of our execs stood up and said, we only have a handful of queer leads in our content. And I went, what? That can't be true. And I realized, it actually is true. We have many, many, many LGBTQIA characters in our stories, and yet we don't have enough leads and narratives in which gay characters just get to be characters, and not have to be about gay stories. And so that's been very eye-opening for me. And I can tell you, it's something that I feel perhaps had this moment not happened, I as a leader and me as my colleagues would not have focused on. And going forward, I certainly will be more so. I know that we will be, and I hope this is a moment where, the 50% of the tears, sorry, are coming. We just don't allow each other to go backwards.
Okay. Well, sorry, honey. Apparently you're going backwards as far as that is concerned, because they're totally dumping the initiatives, which means that some of these characters, some of these storylines, some of these movies are going to actually have to stand on their own 2 feet at the box office, which is how it should be, right? I mean, just like George Stephanopolous should not have that gig just because he's a Clinton crony, as he is and was. Don't forget, this is the guy that was like the Caroline Levitt, if you can imagine that. Good luck. The Caroline Levitt of the White House back in the day under Bill Clinton. So he was always spinning for the Democrats. That's all he's ever done. And then he went to work at ABC News, where he's masquerading around as a quote-unquote journalist with a capital J. I'm Mr. Stephanopolous. Good luck with that one, okay? And people saw through it. Everyone saw through it. We've all seen through the mainstream media, and we've come out on the other side. And you know what? There's going to be hell to pay. Hell to pay, including for people like Letitia James. Donald Trump calling her out, Steve Bannon calling her out, Trish Regan calling her out. But first, quick word from one of our sponsors, American Heart for Gold. You can get up to $15,000 worth of free silver right now with qualifying purchases of gold. You know, I'm a big believer in diversification. It's a lot of what I talk about at 76 Research, my financial research company. And gold is something that we put into our income builder portfolio. It is something that we actually like a lot for a whole lot of reasons, including the inflation picture, also including the drive for emerging market countries all around the world to try and stockpile something other than U.S. treasuries. This is another reason why gold is so, seeing so much upside in this moment in time. So go check it out. And if you're going to invest in gold, go with my friends over at American Heart for Gold. Go to trishlovesgold.com. Trishlovesgold.com. You can text Trish to 65532. You can call them at 1-844-495-1115. Again, if you use that code word Trish, you can get up to $15,000 worth of free silver. Not bad. And by the way, silver tends often to move alongside gold. So kind of a worthwhile thing to have. Again, up to $15,000 in free silver. Text Trish to 65532 or go to trishlovesgold.com. So Letitia James is being viewed at this moment in time, and I think rightly so, as a real menace, a real problem, a real disaster, and not, shall we say, very smart or a very good lawyer. You see, she based her entire case going after Donald Trump on this idea that somehow he was inflating the value of his property, Mar-a-Lago. Letitia James thinks it's worth $18 million. Interestingly enough, the property right next door, I mean literally right next door to Donald Trump, this one right here, do you see parcel A right next door to Donald Trump? Well, what do you know? This one just went onto the market. Just went onto the market for some $200 million. I mean, you don't have a lot of properties that go from the intercoastal to the ocean front. Mar-a-Lago's one, and this parcel A, well, there you go. $200 million. So Letitia takes that. I mean, I don't know how you're coming up with $18 million, given that Mar-a-Lago yields somewhere around $56 million in income. I mean, hey, we should all buy it, right? Anybody should take that trade. But, this was never about anything real. It was always about politics with Letitia. She figured she could wedge herself in between Donald Trump, who was getting the loan from Deutsche Bank, and the bank itself, right? She just wedged herself right in the middle of that transaction and somehow proved that he was fraudulently getting a lower mortgage rate because he was inflating the value of his Mar-a-Lago property, which she deemed to be worth, as did the judge, only $18 million. It's nuts, okay? Especially now that we know $200 million for the lot next door. So Letitia is not that smart. Letitia brought a stupid case, And we're still sitting here waiting for the Court of Appeals. My gosh, guys, you know what? Time is going on. It's ticking, okay? It's ticking. And you guys should have thrown that out. We know you don't like the case. We've heard you tell us repeatedly that the case makes absolutely no sense because guess what? There are no victims. So how do you have a case where there are no victims? Anyway, Donald Trump weighing in on this, saying New York is the most corrupt state in the union. That is why so many businesses and people are fleeing. Yeah, everybody's fleeing New York. I even fled New York. We need great judges and politicians to help fix New York and to stop the kind of lawfare that was launched against me from falsely valuing Mar-a-Lago at $18 million when it is worth perhaps 100 times that amount. The corrupt judge was replaced by another judge only to be immediately put back on the case when the Democrat political leaders found out that a change of the judges had happened. That is exactly what happened. And we reported on that. In fact, it was only for a couple of hours. They took that judge, Arthur Erdogan, off of the case, and then somebody got wind of it, and the next thing you know, the guy's back on it. This is the guy that's trying to hit him with a nearly $500 million fine. Nearly $500 million. It's bonkers. But this woman is bonkers. You know she's bonkers. She wants to seize his assets. She told, interestingly, ABC News, still home, not for long, of George Stephanopolous.
4 days after a judge ordered Donald Trump to pay $355 million for a decade of fraud, New York Attorney General Letitia James says she's prepared to do everything she can to make sure the former president pays his fine, including, she told us, seizing the buildings that bear his name.
If he does not have funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek, judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets.
So she's still on that, right? She's still on that, even though she doesn't have a case. Even though the Court of Appeals needs to throw it out. They know she doesn't have a case either. And yet she's really, it's political. I won't bore you with this. Just a quick second, because you need to remember how awful, like really awful and politically charged this woman is.
He's called me venomous. We will fight back to your attempt to bring Trumpism to New York City. He's called me disgraceful. Of the fact that they stole the Supreme Court seat. An illegitimate president and an illegitimate member of the United States Supreme Court.
Okay, I'm sorry, she's just gross. I mean, she's saying an illegitimate president. What, did she get that from Jimmy Carter by way of Hillary Clinton? Illegitimate, come on. I mean, they're like, Donald Trump's undermining democracy. Hello, who do you think started this? Did Donald Trump run around and say, illegitimate, illegitimate, illegitimate? This is her, okay? This is her. And now she's kind of mad, you see, because, they're doing a whole lot of stuff. They're doing some stuff that she doesn't like. And it's affecting her state because they're basically saying, hey, you know what? If you don't play ball, and she's not playing ball, she's not allowing ICE to do its job. And if you don't allow for that, then you're standing in violation of the law, which means, as Tom Homan says, we're going to put you in cuffs. Or as Mike Davis says, sorry, sweetheart. Well, I can't do it justice. He's good at this one. Watch him here.
Let me just say this to Big Tish James, the New York Attorney General. I dare you. I dare you to try to continue your lawfare against President Trump in his second term, because listen here, sweetheart, we're not messing around this time, and we will put your fat ass in prison for conspiracy against rights. And I promise you that. So.
Yeah. Okay. Like I said, he says it better than I could. Donald Trump is stripping her right now of clearances, as well as Alvin Bragg, the guy who got those felony convictions against him. Those things will be reversed in court too. But he's stripping her of these federal clearances, and he's doing this, alongside, by the way, the former Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, because Anthony Blinken is the one that orchestrated that big letter from the 51X spooks. So he's doing this. It's in part symbolic, but it's also important. In other words, if you've got enemies out there that are trying to take you down, as she so clearly is, then you do need to do something. I want you to see what she's out there saying, trying to stand in the way of everything that Doge is doing, because somehow Letitia just doesn't want anything getting exposed. I wonder how much more there is with her. I think if we do a deep dive investigation, we're going to find out. But
In the past week, Elon Musk and his so-called Department of Government Efficiency have accessed the personal private information of tens of millions of Americans and sensitive data about public and private entities, Social Security numbers, addresses, tax returns, and more. This unelected group, led by the world's richest man, is not authorized to have this information, and they explicitly sought this unauthorized access to illegally block payments that millions of Americans rely on. Payments for health care, child care, and other essential programs.
And we're not going to have all our money, all those transfer payments that we need in the state of New York, because it turns out we were doing some really bad things. In fact, so bad that 4 people were just fired today at FEMA because of it. This was corruption at the highest level. Donald Trump calling out Letitia James again, saying, you know what? She's corrupt, and she is presiding over the most corrupt state in this entire country. And it's why everybody's leaving New York. Steve Bannon, you know him, piling on. I want you to watch it. He's right. He's spot on. Let's watch.
The existential threat to President Trump's administration, and I mean Doge, Elon Musk, Secretary of Treasury Bessent, Russ Vought, Stephen Miller, all of his people. The existential threat is right here in this city. It is the queen of lawfare. It's Letitia James. Right now, Soros has a DA that's running unopposed. He can call a grand jury at any time. He can set up criminal charges on the most bogus efforts. Letitia James runs this deal. She's got a pliant media right here, pliant left-wing media. She's got a jury pool of only left-wing radicals in the Upper West Side of this city. And she's got the judges. She's got all of it. And I'm calling on right now the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to begin an immediate criminal investigation into Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, all of it, for what they did to President Trump. President Trump, on his Truth Social today, laid it out once again. The existential threat to his administration is this queen of lawfare, Letitia James, and how she has absolutely total control. And Doge and Elon Musk and Scott Bessent and all of them ought to be worried about this out of control city. Thank you very much.
I know we don't like to think about the challenges, right, that Trump may be facing. He's going in there guns blazing. He's basically doing everything he was asked and charged to do and everything he said he was going to do. But there is this one woman who wants to be in the way, who actually sees her political future as being in the way. This is what she is all about. This is how she gains stature. This is what she wants to do. And so she's got a city that tends to lean more left than they do right, even though, you take a look at the mayor, say what you want about him. I mean, nobody had a problem with the guy until he suddenly said, yeah, we can't handle all these migrants. We can't handle all the illegals. We can't pay for all this. Then suddenly he became a problem. Donald Trump wiping away those charges and the left going nuts on that. So Letitia loses her security clearance along with a few others that are considered nemesises like Andrew Weissman or Mark Zaid. You also have Jake Sullivan, Anthony Blinken losing their clearances as well, all as Letitia prepares for what? For what? I mean, is this quote-unquote civil war that she was waiting for? Here's Letitia saying she's been preparing for this day for some time.
With other Democratic AGs across this country to make sure that we would be ready to respond to any attempt to roll back our rights. So here we are. We've studied their platforms. We've identified certain possibilities, fact patterns. We've created contingency plans. So no matter what the next administration throws at us, we're ready. We're ready to respond to their attacks.
Oh, and she's already out in front of it, of course. But how much success does she have? I do actually think she's met her match. I think she's met her match with this team, including Pam Bondi. As you heard, Steve Bannon, let me play this little bit again. He is saying, Pam Bondi, go for it. Be unleashed. You got to do what you got to do.
Existential threat to President Trump's administration, and I mean Doge, Elon Musk, Secretary of Treasury Bessent, Russ Vought, Stephen Miller, all of his people. The existential threat is right here in this city. It is the queen of lawfare. It's Letitia James. Right now, Soros has a DA that's running unopposed. He can call a grand jury at any time. He can set up criminal charges on the most bogus efforts. Letitia James runs this deal. She's got a pliant media right here, pliant left-wing media. She's got a jury pool of only left-wing radicals in the Upper West Side of this city. And she's got the judges. She's got all of it. And I'm calling on right now the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, to begin an immediate criminal investigation into Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, all of it for what they did to President Trump.
Boom. You know what? And that's exactly what Pam is going to do. And here's how she's going to do it. Okay, this is important. You need to know, how is Pam going to get Letitia? It's right here. Look, Letitia incriminated herself. She said, New York has laws that protect immigrants and limit cooperation with federal immigration enforcement efforts. These laws should be followed by law enforcement and officials in our state. I'll always uphold our laws and protect immigrant New Yorkers. Okay, so if you're upholding those laws, aren't you doing so in the face of what the federal government is telling you to do? And isn't that going to fundamentally cause a problem? This is why Pam Bondi already out, pausing all the funding. Letitia's going crazy. You can't take our funding. But then again, remember, there's this little thing called the Constitution. I'm talking about Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4. Guess what? The federal government has the power to establish a rule of naturalization. The federal government has the power to control its borders. And it all comes through Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4, which is why if you get in the way of that, honey bunny, you know what? There's going to be trouble. There's trouble ahead. And Pam Bondi's making it clear. They're going after the people that are in the way. And there are people in the way, whether it be Letitia James, whether it be people at the FBI. Tom Homan's accusing the FBI of being the leakers here. We're going to get to that. But Pam's coming for you.
There may be a leak inside the House as it relates to DHS and some of the operations that they are attempting to carry out. What's your reaction to hearing about that, and what, if anything, can be done to mitigate that?
If anyone leaks anything, people don't understand. That jeopardizes the lives of our great men and women in law enforcement. And if you leaked it, we will find out who you are, and we will come after you. And it's not going to stop our mission. It's not going to stop the president's mission to make America safe again. We were very clear with the lawsuit that we filed in Chicago that if you don't follow the law, you will be prosecuted by the Department of Justice.
And again, I go back to the law. Okay, so the law says the federal government has this power. It's one of the reasons that, by the way, Texas had trouble when they wanted that border wall to go back up and you had Biden's team taking it down. Why were they doing that, by the way? Why the heck? Ask yourself that. All these NGOs, et cetera, all this money going to fund illegals coming into the country. What was that about? Certainly not putting America or Americans first. So guess what? They were getting shot down in court because, again, the federal government has the power to control the border. And Tom Homan's like, hey, you know what? If you're leaking stuff, if you're getting in the way of federal agents that are trying to do their jobs, you're going to wind up in cuffs. You hear that, Letitia?
When they come to they cross the line of impediment, and that's why I'm working very close, starting this morning with Department of Justice, and where do they cross that line of impediment? So they may find themselves in a pair of handcuffs very soon. So working with DOJ on that, get some legal guidance on that. I'm not an attorney. I know what SecOps is about. I know what crossing that line is, but getting DOJ back up on that. So it's something we're looking at right now, Harris. We're not going to tolerate it anymore. This is not a game. When we show up these sites, this is a dangerous job for the men and women of ICE and Border Patrol and all the DOJ agencies. To have that type of interference puts our officers at great risk. Not only the officers, it puts the aliens at great risk because anything can happen when we take our eyes off the goal here. So we're addressing that immediately today. I'm addressing OPSEC today, operational security, how these leaks are happening. We've already identified how this operation got leaked. I'll deal with that today. So,
boom. And he's dealing with it. And Pam Bondi's dealing with it. And they're all going to be dealing with Letitia James. Breaking right now, we've learned that Tom Homan believes those leaks are coming from none other than the FBI. Take a look at this. Homan speaking on Hannity.
What is our Tom Homan? Tom, where are these leaks coming from?
Well, look, we think it's coming from inside, and we know the first leak of Aurora is under current investigation. We think we identified that person under investigation right now. The California leak, Secretary Noem, she's correct. Some of the information we're receiving tends to lead toward the FBI. But I talked to the Deputy Attorney General all this weekend. They've opened up a criminal investigation, and they have promised that not only this person lose their job and lose their pension, they're going to go to jail. They're going to criminally prosecute. So we're all over it.
Wow. Again, you're going to remember this, right? Article 1, Section 8, Clause 4. The federal government, not to mention the Commerce Clause, but it is very, very clearly laid out. So Homan saying the leaks are coming from the federal government itself. I'll tell you, Kash Patel cannot get there soon enough because we've got some problems and these things need to get fixed. And that's what Doge is doing, and that's what Trump is doing, and that's what Pam Bondi is going to be doing, and that's what Pete Hegseth is doing, and that's what Kash Patel is going to be doing. And Scott Bessent, our Treasury Secretary, amazingly there saying, okay, you know what, Doge, go do your thing. And then as we find out where all these problems are, like the FEMA people, which we're going to get to, it all gets exposed. Leslie Kimbrell, thank you so much for your generosity. Leslie Kimbrell has been on this channel from the very, very beginning, and we always appreciate her generosity, her support, and her faithfulness in this program. She's making the point that, wow, it's amazing. Mark Fogel coming back to the USA. This is the teacher that had been held in Russia. And it's just incredible because what Biden couldn't do in 3 years, Trump did it in 3 weeks. Amazing, right? It is wonderful. He has been released. He is returning to the U.S. in an exchange that the White House did announce today. The deal to release Fogel, who had been designated as somebody who was wrongfully detained by the U.S. State Department, being negotiated by one Donald Trump, along with Steve Witkoff, who's a special envoy there to the Middle East. And this is all coming from Mike Waltz, who's the national security advisor to Donald Trump. And it's just a tremendous bit of news. It's a show of good faith, the White House says, from the Russians, and a sign that we're moving to the right direction. We want to end the brutal and terrible war in Ukraine. So just wonderful, wonderful news that this teacher who was wrongfully detained is going to be coming home. And thank you, Leslie, for your support and the mentioning of that, because it's an important story. And I think you got to remember here what's going on. Donald Trump is getting stuff done. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, you even look at just the people that are trying to stampede the border right now. That's not happening. Nobody wants to come here because they know exactly what's going to happen. As soon as they get here, they're going to be not only sent out, you could wind up in Guantanamo Bay or worse, one of the El Salvador prisons. I mean, they're not messing around. They're not messing around. Take a look at what's going on at USAID. You see this video? This was tremendous. They're taking the letters right off the darn building. USAID that was giving out some, $70 billion one year, $40 billion another year to journalists all around the world, including some very important groups right here at home, like the New York Times and Politico. I keep saying, like, you knew NPR, you knew PBS, they were supported by taxpayer funds. You didn't know the New York Times and Politico was getting any, did you? Well, sure enough. I mean, I guess that's why they hate Trump so much, because the money spigot was going to be closed. And sure enough, it is closed. It's so closed that if you mess up and you try and do anything sly, you're going to get fired. 4 FEMA employees, they have been fired because guess what was just discovered? They were trying to send money to New York City hotels. This is unbelievable to me. I mean, 5-star hotels getting $59 million because they need to house illegal people. I mean, what about the money for the hurricane victims in North Carolina or Florida? Forget about them, you know. Those fire victims, right? Out in California, forget about them. No, we're going to get the money to the luxury hotels in New York City to cover the migrants' luxury hotel bills. Donald Trump putting out on Truth Social, FEMA spent tens of millions of dollars in Democrat areas disobeying orders, but left the people of North Carolina high and dry. It is now under review and investigation. The Biden-run FEMA has been a disaster. FEMA should be terminated. It has been slow and totally ineffective. Individual states should handle storms, etc., as they come. Big savings, far more efficient, says the businessman, says the developer, who kind of knows the importance of using local resources and how the local people kind of have a better handle on things. You know, when you can make your government smaller, not bigger, for goodness sakes, it'll be more efficient that way. He wants to get rid of it.
On an executive order to begin the process of fundamentally reforming and overhauling FEMA, or maybe getting rid of FEMA. I think, frankly, FEMA is not good. I think when you have a problem like this, I think you want to go and whether it's a Democrat or Republican governor, you want to use your state to fix it and not waste time calling FEMA. And then FEMA gets here and they don't know the area. They've never been to the area. And they want to give you rules that you've never heard about. They want to bring people that aren't as good as the people you already have. And FEMA's turned out to be a disaster. And you could go back a long way. You could go back to Louisiana. You could go back to some of the things that took place in Texas. It turns out to be the state that ends up doing the work. It just complicates it. I think we're going to recommend that FEMA go away, and we pay directly. We pay a percentage to the state, but the state should fix this. If the state did this from the beginning, it would have been a lot better situation. I think you guys agree with that, right?
Yeah. 59 million just last week. So Donald Trump comes into office and it's like the FEMA employees don't hear anything. They skedaddled to get 59 million to luxury hotels. It's unbelievable. Like, it's crazy. And you know what? This is what was going on. You saw the report, New York City hotels. This is from 2024, over the summer. They apparently raked in over $1 billion in taxpayer funds, including one in New York City, the Roosevelt Hotel, a Roosevelt hotel that was getting $200 million. And guess what? The hotel is owned by Pakistan. I mean, you can't make this, I'm not going to say the word up, okay? You just can't make it up. You can't make it up. It's worse than you could have ever possibly imagined. And this was all going down as there were these horrible storms in places like North Carolina, in places like Florida. And guess what Mayorkas had to say? Head of Homeland Security. He's like, we're out of money. We got more storms coming. We're out of money. No money for these people.
We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have. We are expecting another hurricane hitting. We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season.
Yeah, remember this? I showed you this at the time. FEMA was out there giving out all kinds of money to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. New York City to get $100 and nearly $5 million from FEMA for asylum seekers. You had the Department of Homeland Security announcing $300 million in direct funding for communities retrieving migrants and $340 million for a new competitive awards process. FEMA awards $110 million to emergency food and shelter programs to assist migrants. So all this is going down while people are struggling. And you know what? People started to ask, hey, well, why is there all this money that FEMA has $77 million in congressional funding for communities receiving migrants? Why is there all this money, yet there's no money for the Americans that are actually here? And guess what we were told, ladies and gentlemen? Fake news, disinformation, don't go there. Here's KJP at her finest.
Great question. Combating misinformation and disinformation is always, always critically important. It is. You heard the laydown that I gave at the top. The reason I did that at the top is because we wanted to make clear that things are available to the public, folks who are impacted, and that misinformation, disinformation is indeed dangerous. It gets in the way in what we're trying to do here. It does. And there's been a lot of falsehoods. And let me just fact check a couple of things because it's really important. It is wrong, it is dangerous, and I also called out there are important people who have power, privilege, who are spreading these falsehoods, and they need to stop. They need to stop doing that. So, disaster relief, this is a falsehood. Disaster relief funds used on immigrants illegally in the U.S. The fact is, no money is being diverted from response needs. That's the fact.
Okay.
Another falsehood.
Okay, despite the fact that Mayorkas did tell us this.
We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have. We are expecting another hurricane hitting. We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season.
Yeah, okay, so I'm sorry. You know what? Eric Trump put it really well back in the day. This is over the summer. He highlighted exactly the inequity of what was going on.
Sean, right now there are 157 hotels in New York City that are completely full of illegal immigrants. Let me just repeat that number. 150 hotels in New York City that are completely full of illegal immigrants. New York City alone spends over $1 billion a year on illegal immigrants. And then you see these pictures of husbands and wives and children who have lost everything. Their homes have floated down rivers. Their homes have been taken out by mudslides. Their vehicles are gone. Their picture albums are destroyed. Every sentimental value that they could ever possibly imagine is gone. Will never be brought back. And what does Kamala do? She comes out and offers $750. $750. The TV in the person's house costs more than $750, and you see the absolute destruction. Sean, of all the political things that I've seen in the last decade, this is the one that bothers me the most. Hands down, by far. We have spent $200 billion sending money over to Ukraine and Russia to see young, innocent 21-year-old kids in dirty trenches pop around corners and shoot each other in the face with AK-47s. You watch these videos on YouTube, the lives are expunged in a matter of seconds. $200 billion America has sent over there. Yet we can't take care of our own in Georgia and North Carolina and Virginia and Florida. $750. We send billions to places like Pakistan. And they won't tell us that bin Laden is literally living next to their equivalent of West Point. Yet we offer devastated families, the very people you're showing on the screen right now, we offer devastated families $750. Sean, this is the worst administration in the history of the country. These aren't serious people.
And thank goodness they're not there anymore. But apparently the holdovers still think that we need to send money to New York City luxury hotels. Of the $59 million that DOJ found, I want to share with you, it was $59.3 million. $19 million was for direct hotel costs, while the balance funded other services, such as food and security. According to New York City Hall, the funds were not part of a disaster relief grant. Meanwhile, Mike Johnson is saying, well, let's clarify. These emergency relief funding things are separate from FEMA funds allocated to immigration, but said that the agency should not have been funding any of this border crisis by effectively, helping it along. I mean, of course you're going to come to New York. Hey, you get a free hotel room and you get special food. You get special food vouchers. Remember when the mayor of New York said, I'm going to get rid of these vouchers? They were giving them cards for a lot of money. It was $350 a week, so you could buy your own ethnically whatever food, because apparently if you're a refugee from Mexico or Guatemala or wherever, you need your special food. You can't eat whatever they're giving out at the Roosevelt Hotel. Give me a break. So remember this. FEMA's kicking out survivors of temporary housing in snowstorm and freezing temperatures back 2 weeks ago. On January 11th, that was a headline. All while these deep state bureaucrats are giving out our hard-earned taxpayer dollars, $59 million, so that they can have luxury hotels for illegals. You know who's not having any of it? The new FEMA interim director. This is when Cameron Hilton, I have his picture on the screen, he's responded and saying, I want to thank the DOJ team. Thank you for making me aware of this. Effective yesterday, guess what? These have been suspended from FEMA. Personnel will be held accountable. And again, we have learned today, personnel indeed being held accountable. Here's the headline from the New York Post about all the money that went there. Here is the woman that is being fired. Well, one of the four employees, according to Daily Mail, that is being fired. It is high time. You know what? We need some accountability. Lots of accountability. Speaking of accountability, please make sure you are accountable for yourself, for your own retirement. Take advantage of this wonderful financial research company that I started with a very dear friend, Rob Horton, 76 Research. I want you to use code word $. Then you get the 76 report for just $1 a month, $1 a month for the first 2 months, and it goes to $9.95. Lots of information in there. A wealth of information, including some stock picks. If you are serious about investing, though, you'll want to look at the model portfolios. We have a resilience growth portfolio. We have a basic income provider portfolio, so that one day you retire. We have an inflation protection portfolio. Take a look at all of these things. It's important to look after yourself, because you know for certain that Uncle Sam's not going to be there. You better not be there, right? We're getting more and more information about everything that's happening. Things are getting blown wide open, and I'll tell you who's going to lead the charge on this. She just got a very interesting new gig. The representative from Florida, Anna Paulina Luna. Listen to her here.
It is with profound honor that I have been entrusted by Speaker Mike Johnson and Chairman James Comer to lead the House Oversight Task Force on Declassification of Federal Secrets. Together with the help of the White House, our intelligence allies, the Department of Defense, the Department of Justice, we will be conducting investigations into the following: the assassinations of JFK, RFK, and Dr. Martin Luther King, unidentified aerial phenomena, also known as UAPs, unidentified submerged objects, also known as USOs, the Epstein client list, the origins of COVID-19, and the 9/11 files. This task force will be a beacon of bipartisanship. On the Republican side, Representatives Burchett, Boebert, Burleson, Crane, Gill, and Mace will be joining me, although I'd like to note that I'm expanding this to the entire governing body and will be allowing certain members to waive on. Our first hearing is set for March. The date will be announced soon, and we've already initiated close to a dozen communications with various agencies, to include Pam Bondi at the Department of Justice and the Secretary of State. This will no longer be a task force that makes bold promises only to fade into irrelevance or send strongly worded letters. This will be a relentless pursuit of truth and transparency, and we will not stop until the American people have the answers they deserve. We will cut through the bureaucracy, challenge the stonewalling, and ensure that the American people finally get the truth that they have been denied for too long. If we are to endure and thrive as a nation, we must restore trust through transparency. The American people must be trusted to think for themselves, to form their own judgments from the truth that they are entitled to know. We've been treated like children for too long and kept in the dark by those we elected to serve us. It is my solemn duty to begin mending this trust, to form a new relationship between the government and the governed. Let us embrace.
Yes. Okay, we need that transparency. We need that trust. We have been so lacking that. I mean, if you lose the trust of the people, what do you guys have? Right? And believe me, you lost it. You lost it with your Russia stuff. Oh, and then that laptop that was nothing but a bunch of disinformation fed you courtesy of Rudy Giuliani. Turns out the whole thing was true, despite what the 51X spooks told you. Of course, they placed it in Politico, their letter that said, oh, that Russian disinformation is going to try and upend the election, when they actually knew, because the FBI was actually investigating since 2019 that laptop. Okay, so they lied to you. And they did it in Politico, a publication that they were paying on the side for those Political Pro subscriptions, 10 grand a pop, for goodness sakes, to the tune of some $8.4 million. Well, of course, they put it with the publication. They trust, they pay. You see what's going on. Well, Elon Musk, he's there in the White House today, and he echoed exactly what Anna Paulina Luna was saying. He echoed this importance of you got to have faith, right? And if you don't have transparency, what do you got? You're going to wind up like Russia pretty fast. And I'll tell you, all the Russians I know, they don't trust their government. We've basically become that. We can't trust our government because they lie over and over and over again about everything for whatever reason.
If there's not a good feedback loop from the people to the government, and if you have rule of the bureaucrat, if the bureaucracy is in charge, and then what meaning does democracy actually have? If the people cannot vote and have their will be decided by their elected representatives in the form of the president and the Senate and the House, then we don't live in a democracy. We live in a bureaucracy. So it's incredibly important that we close that feedback loop, we fix that feedback loop, and that the public's elected representatives, the president, the House, and the Senate, decide what happened.
Yes. Okay? It's really important. Quick shout out. in the interest of transparency, yes, we have advertisers on the show. So when you actually buy those products, it helps the show. It helps you because, well, if you take Balance of Nature like I do, I think you're going to feel pretty good. I take my fruits and veggies every day. Those are my vitamins. I've told you guys, you know what? I stopped taking vitamins for whatever reason, like probably after the time I was like 12, because I used to take the Flintstones. My mom would put it out with my breakfast every morning, Flintstone vitamins, and somehow along the way I just stopped taking vitamins and really didn't actually start taking them again. I mean, I try and eat well and everything, but I didn't start taking them again until over the course of the last year when Balance of Nature approached me about being one of the sponsors on the Trish Regan show. And so I tried it. I loved it. So far, so good. You know, I tell you all the time, I got 3 kids and everybody's always, it's like a revolving carousel of somebody having the sniffles or a cold or, you know, the flu or whatever. And so far, so good. I'm still standing strong. And I actually think it has something to do with how I take care of myself, which means drinking plenty of water, getting regular exercise, and taking my daily vitamins, for goodness sakes. Fruits and veggies. You can get 35% off right now with my code word Trish. Go to balanceandnature.com, balanceandnature.com. Use code word Trish so you get the 35% off, plus the free shipping, plus money back guarantee. So no harm, no foul. Check it out, balanceofnature.com. Speaking of no harm, no foul, I got another one for you. Don't forget 76 Research, okay? Code word $. If you don't like it, you're out $1. I think you can spare it. You're not even out $1. What am I saying? We'll refund your $1 if you don't like it. Go to 76research.com. Sign up for the 76 report. If you're a serious investor, you actually need to be signing up for our model portfolios. We got 3 of them. Go check them all out there today at 76research.com. I'll tell you that this is amazing. I love seeing this video. I could watch it all day long. USAID, bye-bye. USAID, bye-bye-bye. Losing its letters on the building. 70 billion one year, 40 billion another year. This is a lot of money that was getting flushed through this thing. And the amazing thing is it was going, a lot of it anyway, to journalists, including journalists in the US. I mean, I'm not going to excuse the journalists around the world. Now we know why the folks over in Great Britain, right, are so liberal. 8% of their income comes from USAID. You could make an argument, and I'm not condoning this because I don't believe it, but I can understand somebody saying, you know, this is the CIA slush fund and we have certain agendas that we want to promote, and we're going to promote these overseas so that we have our view represented. Well, how do you justify Politico? If you watch this show, you know I've shown you this graphic before. This is my scribbling in red. I'm just amazed. $8.2 million. And you want to talk about a subscription cost. My goodness. $10,000 a month for these suckers. $10,000 a month. And you can see how they started spending like there was no tomorrow in 2024. I want this money back. I really do. I want every single cent of it back from the BBC, from Politico, from the New York Times. Hey, don't forget, Politico is a German company. That's Axel Springer. They can spare it. That's a big company. Let's get all of that back. What were they doing buying 10,000 zombie subscriptions that apparently nobody even used? And then this is unbelievable to me, the New York Times. They should just tell us, you know what? We are taxpayer funded. We are government funded. We are state media. We knew they were state media, but here's the proof. We got receipts, $26.9 million coming from the department, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. This is thanks to Elon's group, followed by National Science Foundation, $19.15 million. You wonder why Anthony Fauci was getting all the puff pieces in the New York Times. This is why, guys, okay? This is why. You had all this money going to Political, New York Times, Associated Press, Reuters, you name it, just disgusting amounts of money. And Chuck Schumer's out there saying, we want to keep doing it.
I'm going to stand with you in this fight. And we will win.
Chucky, what are you going to win? Nobody wants you to spend their money like that. Just look at the approval ratings of the president. 53% approval rating, including from some unlikely groups, minority groups, women. They like him. They like what he's doing. 70% of Americans saying, you know what? He's getting the job done. He's doing exactly what he promised he would do. And so what are you fighting? I'd really like to know. Oh, you're fighting, okay, all this USAID money that goes for all your pet projects. You've basically commandeered this thing and turned it to a Democrat Party slush fund. Why else would you have $2 million going for transgender operations in Guatemala? Tens of thousands of dollars going to a trans comic book in Peru? Or how about the $30-some-odd thousand going to a trans opera in Colombia or the DEI musical in Ireland. I mean, this is odd to me. This is very, very odd. Why? I mean, the trans stuff is odd enough, right? And like that's ended, by the way. Thank you. With this president, a lot of the DEI stuff is ending. Take a look at Google. Take a look at Disney. Everybody's ending it, all right? They're over it. So why was USAID trying to push this narrative all over the world? I was talking to my 76 research colleague about this just the other day, Rob Horton, and he had a theory, which is kind of interesting. I'll share with you. His theory was that they need to employ all these people somehow, some way. And so what better way than to put them into NGOs and give them some job in Timbuktu, perpetuating this, gender studies nonsense, because it's all part of that academic machine that has to turn out these PhD candidates and make sure that, they aren't suffering under all those loans, because how else are you going to be employed as a gender studies PhD? And then, to rub a little salt in the wound, Donald Trump getting rid of the Department of Education, or at least right now getting rid of 85 contracts. Yes, the federal government is dumping 85 contracts that they have. Maxine Waters is ready to explode. Here she is on Friday trying to demand a meeting with Linda McMahon, who's the new head of the Department of Education, who's charged with trying to wind this whole thing down because it's just grown into a colossal mess since it was started in the 1970s by none other than Jimmy Carter. Kay Nelson Jr., thank you for your generosity. I'm going to get to your comment in just a second, but first...
Look them in the eye. Come on, hold your face up. Look at them. Let them see you. This is him. Look at it. What's your name? Tell us your name. Give me that ID again.
Giving you the ID, I showed it to you.
So what?
I showed you the ID.
You do what?
I showed you the ID.
Could you let me see the ID again? Huh?
No.
No? Will someone else ask him for the ID? Will you ask him for it? He won't let me see it again. You didn't see it. You didn't see it. They didn't see it.
Oh my gosh. Mad Max kind of living up to her name there, right? Oh, that's cruel of me. Reuters, again, there was another one of those places that got all that money. Anyway, the Department of Education has announced again today that they are canceling 85 contracts. So people are flipping out. And they're saying, our kids are going to be at such a disadvantage. Do you think they're at any more of a disadvantage than they already are? I mean, you guys were the ones shutting down the schools, and you look at some of the poorest communities in America, some of the most urban communities in America, and those kids were the worst off because it took forever for Chicago, for example, to reopen its schools, or Baltimore to reopen its schools. In fact, at one point, Lori Lightfoot, the Chicago mayor, who, somehow said nobody can be, going to hair salons, this, that, and the other, but she had her hairdresser coming to her house to do her hair because somehow she's the face of Chicago. She's got to look good. I'm sorry. You can work with all the hairdressers you want, Lori. It's not happening. She couldn't even get those teachers back to work in Chicago. Okay, so I'm sorry. You know what? The onus is on you guys. You try and blame the federal government. You got to manage your own people. And you know what? If Lori Lightfoot isn't getting the job done, you got to vote her out. And sure enough, they did. But we need more of that all over the country right now. We absolutely do. Bye-bye, Department of Education. Bring it to the people. Less government is better. Oh my gosh, Kay Nelson Jr. sharing with me that this is related to the balance of nature vitamins that I take. I'm so sorry to hear this. He said he used to take the Flintstone vitamins, and when he was 5, you ate the whole bottle. You had to get your stomach. But oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. That is quite a story. So yeah, if you take balance of nature, please do not eat them all. Okay, they're really, really good. They're gummies. They're gluten-free. They got that going, if you have gluten intolerance. Anyway, they're really, really tasty. But if you do that, don't do what Kay Nelson Jr. did. That's a cute story. Thank you for sharing it. Their number, by the way, at Balance of Nature is 1-800-246-8751. 1-800-246-8751. Okay, here's a story. What do you think of this? Mainstream media somehow wants to get in on the action. The mainstream media... One Fox News kicked Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly and Bill O'Reilly to the curb. Me as well, by the way, but I'm not part of their group. You see, there's a company called Red Seat Ventures, and Red Seat sells advertising on podcasts. And, you know, like I just did an ad, you got to have ads, right? That helps support the show. I'm able to bring you the content for free because we have advertisers. And so they sell the ads that go into these various podcasts. And they just announced a big deal. A very big deal, in fact. Fox is buying Red Seed Ventures, the company that sells all the ads for the Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, Bill O'Reilly, Piers Morgan as well. Wasn't he with an entity of Fox, like a Murdoch company? And then he made a big deal. Wasn't he with Sky, right? And then he went on his own. He's coming back home. They're all coming back home. What do you know? So Fox is going to sell the advertising of these people that they discarded. There's kind of an irony to that, don't you think? Now, I think they tell you, hey, we own our shows. It's different than last time around. And sure, you know, of course it's different. You do own your show. I own my show. I have somebody that sells the ads, a media company that sells the ads. And you know what? If I don't like what the advertiser is, or, you know, I've turned plenty of ads, believe me, I can be a bit of a headache. Because if I don't like the ad, if I don't like the company, it's not going to appear on the show. But they never say to me, hey, you know, we want you to cover this or that, or maybe you could have this kind of viewpoint on something. That does not happen. Nor would I ever allow that to happen, because you know what? I've been there, done that. That's like the kind of games that they play at network TV. So these guys, to their credit, have gone out on their own and built real businesses, successful businesses. And now Fox is realizing, gosh darn it, you know, we left a lot of money on the table. And what if we were to say, I don't know, sell Jesse Waters alongside Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly? You know, maybe that would be a good way to synergize. And so while Megyn and Tucker still own their shows, you know, somebody else is controlling the purse strings. I hope that whatever contracts they have with Red Seat Ventures enable them to get out. I'm a big believer in the 90-day out. You know, and if you don't sell my ads the way I want you to sell my ads, or if I don't like the ads, or if you are trying to impose some kind of editorial agenda on me, then I walk, right? And as an independent, you have the ability to do that. But how is this entirely different? The difference is, I guess, they do own their content. Like I own the Trish Regan show. Of course, I always owned the Trish Regan brand. Trish Regan is me. When I was on Fox, Fox paid me a salary. And I went on and did the Trish Regan show on Fox. But hey, the difference, I don't have the library. They'll make money, you know, for however long on old Trish Regan videos. But I did own my brand. And while I was under contract, I did, you know, eventually have the ability to go out and do my own thing, which is what we're doing right here. Reminder to subscribe, share, like, all that good stuff. Make a comment. All of it helps. So how is it really different? After all, if Fox doesn't like the narrative they're spewing, if Tucker goes near J6, now that may not happen right now because we're in a whole different world, and this whole new world has allowed for conservative opinion to thrive. But if Fox is like, we really don't like that, it's at odds with who we are as a business, et cetera, then you have to ask, are they going to perhaps reduce some of the ads? And if they're controlling the money, how much are they controlling the product? I'm not saying that's the case, and I think that these people are smart enough to know that if that were to happen, they could make an exit to stage left pretty quickly. But there's an irony here. There's an irony given that these are the talents that Fox felt it couldn't monetize anymore. I don't know, in Megyn's case, whether they were going to keep her or whether she just had a better offer at NBC, but certainly Tucker got a kick in the stomach. Bill O'Reilly went out in flames, and now they're all coming back. What do you know? They're all coming back. And so it's an interesting sort of twist of fate. What I would say is it proves what I've said all along. You know what? The mainstream media wants in. The mainstream media knows that we got it going on over here in the digital space and that this is the future. And they don't have that. I mean, they have Fox Nation, but Fox Nation isn't really doing that well. I mean, if you look at the subscription numbers, I don't think they're anything to write home about. So they're looking over there at Tucker and Megyn and Piers and Bill O'Reilly. Oh my gosh, like those guys, they've figured it out. So they now want a piece of the action. Of course they do. I mean, I'd be a little reticent to get back in bed, frankly, if it were me with them. And I know you guys are going to say you're independent, but they are now going to be controlling your ad revenue. So I'd get the 90-day out. I really would. I'd get the 90-day out and make sure you have the ability to go wherever you want and make sure whoever can sell your show the best does. Because Fox is just in it to continue profiting off of you. I mean, they're capitalists. We're all capitalists here. It's a business. Fox has not been able to figure this business out. So now they're going to these independents. And the concern, I think, dare I say, is that you run the risk that independents may not be so independent at some point. In other words, if you're working for the man, right? If you're working for the big corporation, at what point do they start to infuse their agenda and viewpoint into your programming so as they are able to sell more ads? And the beauty of what independent media really is that we have this Chinese wall, so to speak, between us and, say, that kind of editorial control. And that's what people respond to. And this is why, Joe Rogan has been so successful. This is why Tucker and Megyn and all of them, Piers Morgan, who just went out on his own, they've all been successful. This is why I look at this channel. Wow, I mean, we haven't done any marketing. I'm working on a website, I promise. We haven't done anything. And you guys are here every single day. We've got 575,000, I think, and still counting subs just because I show up with a camera and I talk to you like a real person, because we don't have the teleprompters and we don't have the graphics and the whiz bang and all that stuff. One of my friends who does a podcast, actually Dave Rubin, you may know him, he once said to me, when I was starting out, don't worry about that stuff. The viewers actually don't want all the video and the whiz bang and the noisy graphics. That's very much a cable news thing. And they use those tricks to distract from the actual content itself, in part because sometimes they just don't have the personalities, right, on the air to be able to deliver the content in a meaningful enough way. So they get a whole bunch of whiz bang to distract you with. And that in some ways feels very old fashioned. Well, we don't have that here. Like I said, it's very raw. It's just you and me. And I think it's a special kind of relationship. I've gotten to know you all, for goodness sakes, like Leslie, who's been here from the beginning, and occasionally we run into, I'm laughing at Alphonse, who also I've gotten to know because he's been here so much. Alphonse is like, yep, no chyrons, Trish, no lower thirds. Usually in cable, you always know what the story is that they're talking about because you see the chyron flash on the screen. We don't do that here. I mean, I did it in the beginning. I've tried it out, and it's like, I don't really need it because you guys are actually here regardless of the whiz bang. And I think there's something extraordinary and special and really unique about that. So I don't know, we'll see. You'll have to keep an eye on those guys and see if their content changes in any way, shape, or form. I can tell you this, Egan Gagnon, thank you so much for your generosity. It is so appreciated, really and truly. You guys are just wonderful. I think that this is a very unique and very new medium, and I'm very protective of it because authenticity is really all I have. My brand is me, and no one can take that away. Corporate media, in their case, may try, and they're going to have to stand up and be strong. Very, very interesting stuff. 76 Research, that's my company that I started. I want to just give a plug again for that. Use code word $, 76research.com. You can get a lot of market research there with just the 76 report. But for those of you that are really interested in investing, I cannot stress this enough. Go check out the model portfolios, 10 to 15 stocks in each and every single one of them that are designed to be long-term picks. We rarely make changes. We did, I should say, over the weekend. Last weekend, we came out with one change in one of the portfolios. I think that you got some of that information if you're signed up on the email. You can go to investinmaga.com, investinmaga.com. You can go to 70, that's the free stuff. You can go to 76research.com, get the 76 report for $1. Finally, I will remind you that one of our great show sponsors right here, you see, we're just talking about advertising shows. The other one is just all me, but this one is American Hartford Gold, and these guys are great, okay? They're really, really great. You know how picky I am about advertisers, and they are giving up to $15,000 worth of free silver with gold purchases right now. You can text Trish to 65532, text Trish to 65532, or call them at 1-844-495-1115, or go to the best handle of all time, trishlovesgold.com. trishlovesgold.com. I do. What can I say? All right. I love markets. I love gold. I love investing. And I love what Donald Trump and Doge is doing. Like, I love every single minute of this. As somebody who's a fiscal conservative, how could you not? Right, Donald Trump actually talking about creating a sovereign wealth fund. Imagine.
This is an executive order. Discharges your Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, and your Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick, to begin a process that will hopefully result in the creation of an American sovereign wealth fund.
It's a very exciting event. We're going to have a sovereign wealth fund, which we've never had. We have a lot of things that create wealth, and you're seeing that over the last 2 weeks. I think we've created more wealth. Other people have created de-wealth, the people, my predecessors. We're creating a lot of wealth. Scott, maybe you'd like to say something about it, and I'd ask also Howard to say something about it.
Yes, sir. This is very exciting. We're going to stand this thing up within the next 12 months. We're going to monetize the asset side of the U.S. balance sheet for the American people. We're going to put the assets to work, and I think it's going to be very exciting. We're going to study best practices that's done around the world. It'll be a combination of liquid assets, assets that we have in this country as we work to bring them out for the American people.
The extraordinary size and scale of the U.S. government and the business it does with companies should create value for American citizens. If we are going to buy 2 billion COVID vaccines, maybe we should have some warrants and some equity in these companies and have that grow for the help of the American people. So I bring all these things together. I think Scott and I will create an amazing sovereign wealth fund for you, sir.
So other countries have sovereign wealth funds, and they're much smaller countries, and they're not the United States. We have tremendous potential in this country, tremendous. You're seeing that, what's happened just in a short period of time. And as an example, TikTok, we're going to be doing something perhaps with TikTok, and perhaps not. If we make the right deal, we'll do it, otherwise we won't. But I have the right to do that, and we might put that in the sovereign wealth fund, whatever we make, or if we do a partnership with very wealthy people, a lot of options, but we could put that as an example in the fund, and we have a lot of other things that we could put in the fund. And I think in a short period of time we'd have one of the biggest funds, and some of them are pretty large, I must tell you. Some of the, like the Saudi Arabia fund is on the large side, but eventually we'll catch it. But we're going to create a lot of wealth for the fund, and I think it's about time that this country had a sovereign wealth fund, and these two gentlemen and some others are going to work with them very closely, and they'll be heading it up, and they're going to do a great job. Two highly respected people that have done unbelievably well in the world, in the real world. So that's a big deal, huh?
Yes, sir. I think it's going to create value and be of great strategic importance.
Amazing. The U.S. is creating a sovereign wealth fund. I mean, think about that. Like, Donald Trump's coming in and he's like, wait a second, how do we make money? Let's stop losing money in needless places. I mean, the penny thing, right? It costs like 2.5 cents just to make one penny. He's like, forget it. We're not making pennies anymore. I know I feel a little bit bad about it too because, we're going to get a little nostalgic here. But you got to be a realist. The pennies cost too darn much to make. And he's like, 1 penny at a time, we are going to save this country money. And not only are we going to save the country money, we're going to make money. We're going to make money in our sovereign wealth fund. There's a lot we can talk about. There's a lot we can debate because you don't necessarily want the federal government in there running businesses. I'm only thinking about Maxine Waters and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and these kinds of people that don't understand how corporations work. We're not always going to have, say, a Scott Bessent there who spent his entire career investing in things. But so long as we got him, right? Maybe we can make a little ka-ching for the U.S. taxpayer. Maybe we can actually help bring our debt down because we actually start making money. That's the innovation. That's what's so amazing here. This is a whole new ballgame. And I'm telling you, all these people on the left that want to sit there and moan and whine and, my gosh, but we need all that Doge money. We need all that USAID money. We need all that, this, that, and the other going to all our pet projects. Your day is over, okay? New team is in charge, and they're going to make America great again. Thank you for watching. I'm back here live, as always, with you tomorrow. Make sure you hit the bell.